Hello, and welcome to Scott's Odyssey. I've done a significant number of videos that include a Pennsylvania furnace. In those videos, we have seen some sort of Illuminati-shaped pyramid with a hole in the top and an opening in the front, and maybe some sort of interpretive placard describing someone's interpretation of how it all worked. And we all know how I feel about the interpretive signs, aside from their asinine names. Well, today we are going to see why we don't have to interpret how and what a furnace site actually looked like. I welcome you to Eagle Ironworks, the last of the original iron furnace sites still standing in the United States. See you in a minute. Welcome back. If you've watched my videos before, thank you for your patronage, and if you're new to Scott's Odyssey, welcome aboard. Please give a click on that like, and don't forget to subscribe for more ODDySEEy stories of who we once were. Make sure you jump out to my Patreon or the ODDySEEy merchandise store in order to help keep this channel going. If you own a company, I am open to video sponsorships. Now, I mentioned how I feel about interpretive signs in several videos, and in most of those explanations of my feelings, I have backed it up with a well-founded opinion. When it comes to furnaces, these interpretive signs make these sites out to be some sort of small Pennsylvania hillbilly redneck type of rock structure with frail, ingrate, if not inbred people doing manual labor and dropping dirt into a hole while burning down the entire state. Is that inaccurate? Well, yes, on so many levels. It would require its very own video just to delve into the intricacies of how technically advanced and well-oiled to a streamlined operation these sites really were. And as for size, well, this is what a furnace operation actually looks like. Not just a single 30-foot dinky rail on a dirt hill to the top of an open stone hole melting iron ore and spilling onto a hand-carved rock in the floor making an ingot. Now, how old is a site like this? Let's get into that, shall we? Born to Roland Curtin and Mary O'Loughlin in the year 1764, Roland Curtin started his life in the civil parish and village named Ina, found in the townland of Carrowkeel East in the county of Clare in the Republic of Ireland. It's said that he was formally educated in Paris, France, narrowly escaping the guillotine during the Reign of Terror, or essentially when the two opposing political factions of France clashed in violence at the beginning of their revolution. Immediately after this brush with death, Roland left for America and arrived at Philadelphia in 1793. He lived in Phillipsburg until 1797, moving to Bellefonte, where he met and married Marjorie Gregg just a year later in 1800. Now, here's an instance where the interpretive is getting some things really wrong. The blue signs and local interpretive signs dictate that Roland relocated to Bellefonte in the Bald Eagle Valley of the Juniata Iron region in 1799. This is really bad information. Roland actually moved from Phillipsburg to Bellefonte in 1797, not 1799. Is Bellefonte in Bald Eagle Valley? No. Is the Juniata Iron region in Bellefonte or Bald Eagle Valley? Doubly no. You see, I live less than 1 mile from the center of the Juniata Iron region, which is located in and near the Juniata Valley, created by the Juniata River Basin. And well, let me tell you, Bald Eagle Valley, Bellefonte, which is in Nittany Valley, State College, which is partly in Nittany Valley and partly in Penns Valley, are 50 miles away on the other side of at least one and up to 3 different mountain ranges. Essentially nowhere near the Juniata Iron region. Why is this important? This goes back to the interpretive signs giving garbage information, which are just an advertising mechanism that tries to bring people in for money by telling them a false history of a location instead of telling the facts and the truth, which are usually more beautiful than the falsehoods. You see, a lot of times misinformation is portrayed by alleged historians who seek to garner more attention to themselves, and to their neighborhoods. Now, I say alleged historians, and they may very well have a liberal arts degree in history, but once you fail to research and start to provide inaccurate information, you're no longer a historian in my book. So by claiming this site as part of the Juniata Iron region, this site gets lumped into the historic grandeur of sites such as the Mount Etna furnace, or as being part of Pennsylvania's Grand Canal system connecting the east to the west, of which this area only had a short managed navigable canal that ran back to the Susquehanna River, and absolutely nothing going west, north, or even south. And attempts to garner interconnection with a stately Allegheny Portage rail system, or even the PRR, which again, there was nothing more than a short line connecting from Bellefonte to State College, with another short line ending just past Scotia, and absolutely no viable interconnect near this location to even make it to Tyrone or Altoona. As you could probably hear in my presentation voice, this type of misdirection of these historical societies is absolutely infuriating. With no facts, they make an assumption and fluff a story with disinformation in order to garner more recognition or money, and that truly is shameful. Where were we? Oh yeah, Roland. So Roland decided he wanted to get in on the iron rush that was sweeping Pennsylvania, and in 1810 got together with Miles Boggs, a person whom little to no information can be garnered regarding his importance, why he and Roland partnered up, nor why the township is named after him. Now, here's the correct way to do an interpretive when data is missing. A fact: Roland lived in Bellefonte. We do not know where Miles Boggs lived, but we know a large piece of the territory in the Bald Eagle Valley surrounding the Bellefonte area all the way to Howard is called Boggs Township. This would suggest that Miles Boggs was the owner or the proprietor of a large tract of land in the Bald Eagle Valley, and that is why and how he was able to partner with Roland Curtin in order to form the Eagle Forge. But that is only an interpretation of what may have happened, and there is no documentation stating that this is the actual reason. Let me know in the comments below if you know of stories and locations such as this one of the Eagle Forge in Curtin Village. I know you're going to say Hopewell. Anyway, my research is limited only by the information that people don't share openly. Help me break that barrier, and let's share the history and culture of who we once were. Now, the Roland Curtin and Miles Boggs partnership was called the Eagle Forge, and what they did was buy pig iron from local furnaces, fired it in the forge, and then used a rolling hammer powered by the Bald Eagle Creek in order to make hammered wrought iron ingots to send back east. Before the end of their 8-year operation, Roland Curtin bought out Miles Boggs and decided to expand the operation. Although the area was already inundated with iron furnaces that had been established and running for over 30 years, Roland decided he would build his own cold blast iron furnace to supply his forge, thereby cutting out the middleman of the pig iron process. Taking this huge of a risk was what made or broke men back in these days. And Roland Curtin, well, he was one of the lucky ones. The demand for iron expanded exponentially starting in 1820 and into the 1830s. Roland expanded the operation to include a rolling mill, housing for all the employees, temporary housing for seasonal workers, and a huge, well-to-do 15-room mansion for himself and his older sons, whom were all brought into the business. And the building remained occupied by members of the Curtin family until 1950s. Yes, 1950s, not 1850s. Here's another interesting piece of misinformation found on the interpretive and presented by the local historians. When learning about Pennsylvania and its history, you will eventually come across the name Andrew Gregg Curtin, the 14th governor of Pennsylvania and son to Roland Curtin. He will be described as Roland Curtin's eldest and only son of 5 children, meaning Andrew is the only son and that he had 4 sisters. This is a rampant lie throughout all history surrounding Andrew. But there is one problem. How is it possible that Roland built a mansion to house himself and his eldest sons if Andrew is his only and eldest son? Well, the devil's in the details, and you can get more people to come to a site if you believe that it has some historical significance to the governor of Pennsylvania during the Civil War than you can by telling the truth of the location and how it had nothing to do with the Civil War beyond providing iron, just like all the other furnaces and forges. Here's the truth and fact of the matter. Roland Curtin married Marjorie Gregg in 1800. They had their firstborn son in 1801. Their second son in 1803, their third son in 1805, their fourth son in 1806, fifth son in 1808, their sixth son in 1810, and then Marjorie died in 1813 of unspecified reasons. Roland remarried in 1814 to a woman named Jane Gregg, and in 1815 Andrew Curtin was born, followed by another brother and 3 sisters through 1831. So not only was Andrew 7th down the line, or as you may historically state, a 7th son in the line, and not the firstborn, and he was not the only son in the Jane Gregg leg of the family. The interpretive signs still say he was one of 5 and the only son. How's that for mind-blowing? Andrew was one of 11 siblings, where only 3 were girls, and he happened to be the 7th son. Is it possible that Roland himself was a 7th son from an unbroken line of sons with no daughter in between, such as Andrew was, thereby granting Andrew mystical powers and greatness that come with being the 7th son of a 7th son and lead him into his future role of governor of Pennsylvania during the Civil War? Well, that'll be a story for a different video. This time, I was just pointing out how, again, our historians are failing us with lies and misdirection for whatever their reasons. At the peak of its operation in 1832, the Ironworks iron plantation had over 60 houses, 11,000 acres of farmland to keep the workers, the families, the work animals, and livestock fed year-round. By 1848, the plantation had expanded more and had replaced the 30-year-old Eagle furnace with the newer and better constructed furnace named the Pleasant Furnace. The plantation was officially renamed into the Ironworks Iron Company and came with the full company complement of iron workers, drivers for cross-state wagon trains, blacksmiths, forge and furnace workers, rolling mill workers, general store operations, and even their own colliers for the coal mines. As for the working conditions, well, it is not what you would expect to hear from such an operation, but Roland and his sons were absolutely loved by all whom got the opportunity to work for Eagle Ironworks. I mean it. If there was a best place to live and work in Pennsylvania for the years 1810 to 1850 and possibly longer, it would have been the Curtin Village, as it was often called, and Eagle Ironworks. Roland and his sons sought to make all employees a member of the family. As stated by the history books, it was a paternalistic relationship. Roland and his sons often frequented with and intermingled with all the members of the community and would assure the well-being and livelihood of all the employees when the factory was in any form of shutdown for any reason. Now, this does not mean everyone loved the Curtins, but for the most part they did, and even those who were not hired by the Curtins but came from a family that was, were often found speaking with the Curtins for advice on how to be better at their jobs while they worked at the less amicable competitors such as Hopewell Forge, which was a racially mixed with Germans, British, free blacks and Italians, but never an Irishman. What? Oh, you didn't know the Irish were hated in Pennsylvania? Yeah. Well, the Irish in Pennsylvania were probably the most hated upon immigrant of all the people that came to America, even though they are the ones who built the biggest and strongest infrastructure. They did the canals, the rails, the bridges, the roads, the police departments, and all the coal you could ever possibly burn. But I digress. We'll eventually get around to talking about the Irish, just not for this video. Remember that peak in production I talked about in 1832? Well, the tides had shifted for the ironworkers all across Pennsylvania at that time, and it was very slow and a steady decline from that year forward. In trying to keep up with the needs of the company and the needs of all the working families and their families, Roland went into a total burnout, and by 1844, almost 8 years later than all the other forges and furnaces, the Eagle Ironworks was in heavy debt, and Roland could no longer bear the weight. In order to avoid bankruptcy on all the other properties he now owned, the Ironworks went into a mortgage with a bank, and Roland died in 1850. His son spent 23 years getting the ironworks back to a point of solvency, still working with the old cold blast charcoal iron furnaces. Unfortunately, they reached the point where competition with the bituminous coke furnaces and the need for steel instead of iron caught up to them. Instead of changing their ways with the innovations shown by their father, Roland, the sons continued to operate the furnace and forge as a coal-fired iron company, supplying only small niche markets. In 1921, the factory suffered a fire that took out 90% of the site and severely damaged the forge, ending iron production. In 1922, with the inability to get everything operational at the forge site again, it went out of blast for the very last time. And in 1926, the furnace was starved until it went cold, thus ending over 100 years of operation by the Curtin family, making this site the last and longest burning charcoal furnace to exist in the United States, exemplifying the story of who we once were. And it still remains as a rebuilt standing capture of its 1825 through 1850 appearance. Since then, the furnace mansion, workers' cabins, and what was left of the plantation were picked up by the state and established as a state-owned historical site managed by the Roland Curtin Foundation, which is open to the public during your normal any day of the week sunrise to sunset location. If you haven't already, remember to click like on this video and to subscribe for more ODDySEEy stories of who we once were. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.